Hello, hello! Welcome to Part 3, Chapter 5, my Fire Emblem 10 Hard Mode 0% Gross playthrough. I am DonDon151, joined once more by Mekkah.
Hey, how's it going?
To bring you up to speed on the story, because we skipped it, after the calamitous event at the end of 3-4, the Laguz Alliance is in full retreat, and the Grail mercenaries are lollygagging about with nothing to do. Therefore, I kind of don't understand the point of this chapter. It pretty much just exists to show that the Benyan army is extremely dumb without General Zelgitz calling the shots, because one of the Benyan noblemen decided to send one of his sub-generals to do a sneak attack on the Grail mercenaries, and he's obviously going to fail miserably. In the vein of pointlessness, this chapter reminds me a lot of 2 Endgame. They both shared the exact same objectives, a combined defend and kill boss, both aspects of which can be easily trivialized. The defense aspect, you just deploy Ike and no one else and spam end turn for 15 turns while using healing items, whereas the kill boss aspect can be easily beaten in most playthroughs in just 1 turn, and the boss doesn't start all that far away from your combined starting points. I think it's a bit unfair to this chapter that a lot of players hold 2 Endgame in such high regard, whereas they would hardly give this chapter an afterthought, even though fundamentally they are pretty similar to each other. Now, because Laguz Alliance is in retreat, none of the Beast Tribe Laguz that we got in 3-4 are deployable here. Kind of a shame, as we would have liked to deploy Ranulf for a little bit of extra strike rank grinding, but we do get to deploy Reyson for the first time in this playthrough, and Reyson is more useful than all of the other Beast Laguz combined.
Reyson is a Heron, just like Leanne and Raphael, but he works quite differently. Unlike those two, his transformation makes a big difference for him. He can actually vigor 4 people just like Raphael, but only when he is transformed. However, in order for him to get there, we either have to use a Laguz Stone, which is a very limited resource and gives up a turn. We can also give up 2 turns to huff a Leafy Grass with him, or you can get Reyson attacked 3 times, which will allow him to transform naturally. That's a terrible option though, because Reyson not only looks like he's made of paper, but he figuratively is. You can also do absolutely nothing with his gauge, in which case he will transform at the start of turn 7. In a regular playthrough, a transformed Reyson opens up a myriad of options, but for an LTC playthrough, Reyson presents a very interesting trade-off. Giving up the super important turn 1 refresh for the sake of a quadruple dance on the following turns is not as strong as you think it might be, because turn 1 is just so important. It's when you want to catapult your best unit forward into the map, and it turns out that the quadruple dances don't pay for forfeiting turn 1 very often, unless the map lasts for 4 or more turns, which usually we try to avoid. He's still extremely helpful by virtue of being a refresher. He has more mobility than most dancers like Tethys and Ninian, thanks to his higher movement, flight, and canto, and that lets him refresh units further into the map or hide from enemies after doing so. He also exists for more maps than the other 2, but I would still argue he's the worst of the 3 Herons in this game because turn 1 is just so crucial that it's better to have the more powerful multi-dance right away. Anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk about Reyson.
No, thank you, Mekkah, for that exciting filler content. As we get to the good part of this chapter's strategy, the whole reason that we're not finishing this chapter in 1 turn is because similar to 2 Endgame, there is a stealable item on the boss, and for that we need hard to drop best companion Heather. Now, Heather is going to survive a very daunting enemy phase, but in reality her chance for survival is extremely good because of the resolve skill. We also placed her on the thicket for the extra 10 avoid. Between that and her just coincidentally being in best biorhythm for this enemy phase, once she is below half HP, the vast majority of enemies have 0 hit on her. Every now and then there might be an enemy with a more accurate weapon who also has positive biorhythm that might scrape positive hit rates on her, but all in all, the chance of her surviving this enemy phase is practically guaranteed. The other thing that we have to take into account then is the AI of the 3 flunkies who flank the boss. The boss, being kind of smart, is protected at 1 range on 3 sides by generic paladins, and we have to figure out a way to get rid of them, but on enemy phase. And these guys have the AI kind of like Jill's in chapter 1-5, where they will only go out to attack someone if they can canto back to their starting spot. The 2 guys to the left and right have 2 range, but the guy directly above him had 1 range, and therefore we baited him to suicide onto Hard the Horse Slayer, and this opens up the 1 range spot to allow Heather to walk up to him and steal the energy drop on the next player phase.
Just like in 3-4, everyone not directly involved with the main objective is doing another small training session. The fact that we're 2-turning the map gives us some time to farm, and there are a lot of aggressive enemies, but we have to leave a lot of them on the table because our units are losing steam fast compared to them. Mia is on the right side, racking up a nice number of kills. She probably has the worst odds of success in this chapter, since if she doesn't dodge enough hits or proc enough skills, she can die. The Swordmasters are easy pickings for her because they're frail, but the Generals are another story. In the top left, Shinon farmed a couple of kills from atop the ledge with some help from a couple of friends, or as he probably sees them, his annoying colleagues. He maximized his enemy phase, considering his bowlock, but there's only so much we can do, especially since he's starting to struggle with doubling enemy halberdiers and warriors. In the center, Titania weakened a general for Oscar. Oscar really struggles to get kills, since he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. He doesn't have the speed to double, his attack isn't enough to even two-shot enemies, he lacks the bulk to survive a lot of them, and he also doesn't have access to any good effective weaponry, so this is the best it's going to get for him. As for everyone else, Mist fails to grab a coin from her location, but Gatchi fortunately succeeds in getting his. Titania gets the boss kill with an assist from Reyson, who needed 3 shoves to get into that position, which is what the other flunkies are here for. Titania has a really high level and gets like no experience from generics, so this half a level that she gets from this is really helpful. Even after that, she's only level 18 and we need her to be promoted by chapter 3-8, which is around the corner for her, so she's not doing a whole lot in 3-7, and that's the only Grill Mercenary map that's remaining until then. That's chapter 3-5, wrapped up in 2 turns. We will see you next time.
Goodbye.